Hello, friends. It's Mike Williams. I recently had the pleasure of presenting at the Truth Telethon, which took place on December 11th. There were many speakers, and each of us had 30 minutes to present a topic. The topic I selected was hypnosis in the media. The link to the full telethon is in the description box below, and I highly recommend taking a listen when you have a moment. And so with that, here's my segment, and thanks for listening.
And now we have Mr. Mike Williams from the Sage of Quay Radio Hour. He's a critical thinker, host of the popular internet radio show, the Sage of Quay Radio Hour. Take it away, brother.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much. And what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to take everybody through how the media uses hypnosis to condition. So before I get started, as you said, I am the proprietor of the Sage of Quay Radio Hour. I'm also a certified master hypnotherapist, and I have been for a decade or so. And I would like to thank everybody on the team here for inviting me to present today. I'm going to go through a quick overview of how hypnosis works in media in order to better understand how the controllers go about conditioning the masses. So I'm going to be talking to several charts in order to make sure I capture as much as I can in 30 minutes. I will start with an overview of what hypnosis is versus what it is not, and then I will progress through the presentation to explain how hypnosis is used to create mass conditioning. Once we understand how this model works, we will be better equipped to decode and to defy their tactics. So the title of my slide here, I know everybody can't see it, so I'm just going to talk to it, is Did you know that hypnosis is nothing like you see on TV or in the movies? Hypnosis is a natural state of consciousness. There's nothing magical or mysterious about it. A hypnotic state simply means that your brain waves have slowed down. So if we are in our waking state, our conscious mind state, the brain waves look like this, like sine waves, very defined. When we drop into lower states of consciousness, into trance or hypnosis, those brain waves go from looking like this to becoming less prominent. They almost become flattened. And that flattening of the brainwave allows us to bypass the conscious mind and to get into the subconscious/unconscious mind, what I will refer to as the inner mind. And this is what the controllers do, because this is what the controllers know. They're not playing with our conscious mind. What they're doing is they're changing behavior and reactions and emotions by plugging into our subconscious or inner mind. And I'll get into how that works in a bit. We go into hypnosis at least twice a day, right before we go to sleep at night, that in-between state, right before we nod off. We're going from a higher level trance state into a deepened trance state, which would be sleep. And then when we first awaken in the morning, we're coming out of that deep delta state, making our way through theta, alpha, and then ultimately to beta, which is the brainwave cycle for consciousness, for our waking state. Now, other examples of hypnosis that we're probably going to be very familiar with is when we are watching a movie, when we're watching television, when we're reading a book, when we daydream. Daydreaming is a trance state. And when we are engaged in creative activities such as playing music, painting, writing. And an example that I use a lot to help folks understand how the trance state works and how it focuses our attention on something very specific. Think of it this way. When we used to go to a movie theater, I say used to because we can't go to movie theaters right now anymore. But when we first get to the movie theater, let's say it's a very popular movie and the theater seats 500 people. And when we first get there, we see that there's a lot of folks there and we think, wow, there's a lot of people here to see this movie. So we take our seat. And once the film begins to roll, what happens? What happens is we're very focused on what's playing on the screen. And we have that focus to the exclusion of the other 499 people who are sitting around us. in the back of our minds, because our conscious mind never leaves, we are aware that the movie theater is packed. We are aware that there are 499 other people. But when we drop down into an alpha state, and I will cover the states in a bit here, once we drop down, we are focused on what's playing on the screen to the exclusion of everything else that's going on around us. So that's another example of going into a trance state. Also, when we're driving. So let's say we're driving on the highway and we are lost in thought, and then we realize that we don't remember driving the last mile or two. That's referred to as highway hypnosis. That's where we are maybe thinking about work, or we're thinking about something going on at home, and the subconscious mind takes over the driving responsibilities. So we go in and out of hypnosis or trance all day long, and I will use hypnosis and trance interchangeably because they are interchangeable terms. And we also learn when we are in a trance state. So when we were in school, whether it be elementary school, middle school, high school, college, when we were watching the teacher or listening to the teacher, they were writing on the board, or they were speaking to us, or they were giving us instructions, or if it's a college professor, we drop into an alpha state, because it's the same thing as the movie theater analogy, where we have other people in the classroom with us. But once our focus goes to the teacher or the professor, that's where our focus is, to the exclusion of everybody else in the room. So we learn by being in trance. So when you study, or when you studied, if you're not in school anymore, if you're learning something new, if you're picking up a hobby, whatever, any type of creative process, we drop into a trance state. So hypnosis, what it is at its core, is focused concentration in an altered state of consciousness. Now, hypnosis is not evil, and it is very helpful in bringing about positive change. But like anything else, intent is very important. It's like asking someone if electricity is good or bad. Well, it depends. When electricity lights our homes, it's a good thing. However, if we are struck by lightning, then it's not such a good thing. So intent is very, very important. And I will get into the whole concept of many times people equate hypnosis with mind control. Mind control equals hypnosis, and that is not the case. And I'll talk about that in just a bit. So as I mentioned before, the terms trance and hypnosis are interchangeable. So I will go back and forth as I take us through this little talk here. Also, the conscious mind can be referred to as the waking state. And I will use the term inner mind when referring to the subconscious or unconscious mind. Many times the subconscious / unconscious mind comes across as very clinical, so I prefer to use the term inner mind. Now, there are 4 basic trance states. We have beta, which is our conscious or waking state. That's the state we're in, like right now. Well, I'm in right now as I'm speaking. And that operates between 13 and 40 hertz. Below beta is alpha. So alpha operates between 7 and 12 hertz. This is the state of brain waves where we would have relaxation, visualization, creativity. So when you're reading a book, you're in alpha. When you're watching television, you're in alpha state. When you're in the movie theater, my example I just used before, you're in alpha. Okay, so you're in a trance state when you're in the movie theater, watching TV, reading a book, and so on. Keep that in mind because we're going to circle back to that. And then below alpha is theta. So theta is between 4 and 7 hertz. And this is where we can get into spiritual regression. We can experience deep meditative states, and also the area where we have very, very intuitive thoughts. And then below theta, we have delta, which is our sleep state, and that operates between 0 and 4 hertz. Okay, so to recap, at the top is beta, then below that is alpha, below that is theta, and then below theta is delta. when the controllers put their hypnosis box in our living rooms and we turn it on and watch it. For those of us that still watch it, I don't. I've turned it off, but many people still do. Obviously, we can see that every day. They drop into that alpha state and they're in a hypnotic state, and that's when the hypnosis begins. And this is why when people ask many times, how come we can't get people to realize or understand this or that? The reason is because they are programmed. They are literally being conditioned to have a set of files that is going to dictate how they react and how they behave. All right. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about some of the functions that the conscious mind manages versus what the subconscious or unconscious mind or the inner mind manages. So all of our logic and our gatekeeping type of behaviors and thought processes, that is managed by the conscious mind. So planning, willpower, judgments and decisions, this is all at the conscious mind level. At the inner mind level, which would be the subconscious or unconscious level, we have our habits and patterns, and that's what we're going to focus on. There are the automatic body functions. In other words, you don't have to worry about focusing on your heart beating or your lungs breathing. That's taken care of by your inner mind. We have cellular memory at the inner mind level, also our creativity, our emotions, and our protection, which is obviously linked to safety. So this is something that the controllers want to tap into all the time, right? We have to sacrifice freedom for safety. If you want to be safe, you have to give up some of your freedom. So the point I'm going to get to here is that they are very, very adept, very, very knowledgeable in how the human mind works and how to manipulate human behavior. Okay, so it's important to understand how habits and behaviors are created. So think of your brain as a biological computer, and I think David Icke uses that term, but it's a very accurate term, or a hard drive that stores files. So whenever an event takes place which has impact to us, for example, physical or emotional trauma, it can create behavior which is repetitive in nature. So what happened was when that impactful event took place, that traumatic event wrote a file or files, plural, to the hard drive. So whenever your conscious mind, after that point, encounters or engages in a particular situation or circumstance, it asks the inner mind to send up files which will result in a particular behavior or reaction relative to the situation that the conscious mind is now in or has encountered or has engaged. The files that the inner mind sends do not have to be an exact match. That's very important. Close enough is good enough as far as the inner mind is concerned. So when the conscious mind says, hey, I'm here, what do I do? What do I say? How do I react? How do I behave? The inner mind says, okay, hold on a second. And all right, well, these look like the right files here, so use these. And that's how we behave to certain situations or how we react to certain situations. I should also mention that in many cases, the files which are created go back to our childhood years. It's not always the case, but in my practice, I have a clinical practice along with I do spiritual work as well, spiritual regressions. Many of the issues that people come in with, stress, fears, and so on, it goes back to when they were younger. Okay, many times they're childhood years and also into their teenage years. Files which are used on a consistent basis makes those files stronger and results in what is referred to as habituated patterns of behavior, which can be hard to break, especially if the behavior is deemed undesirable by that person. So as an example, smoking. Many people who smoke do so because it relieves stress. They want to take a break. They need to step away from work for a second, or whatever is going on that might be causing a stressful situation for them. So they will light up in order to relax and de-stress. So the inner mind, what it does is it sends the smoking files to the conscious mind when the person is in that situation where they are experiencing stress. Now, it should also be noted that the events that take place, or the triggers, can be real or imaginary. This is very important. The mind really doesn't distinguish between real and imaginary. So it could be a real event. In other words, it's real stress that's taking place, or it could be imagined stress, worrying as an example, right? I was watching a DVD years ago, and it was, I never forget this line. And the person, I forgot who the person is, so if they're listening, I'm sorry. But they said that worrying is praying for something that you don't want to have happen. And, a lot of people worry, and that's something that the controllers tap into as well all the time. They understand that the mind doesn't distinguish between real or imaginary. And so they'll make you worry because you're worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, but you're still going to worry, and you're still going to behave and react a certain way. So what happens with the smoking is the person who smokes, the smoking files become stronger and stronger over time as the person continues to smoke. And many people have smoked for decades. This is referred to, again, as I mentioned before, a habituated pattern of behavior. And this is why many people have a hard time quitting. In order to quit, the subconscious mind or the inner mind needs to become aware that a new behavior is desired, and it will either delete or update the old files in order to create the new behavior or reaction. So what I mean is the old behavior, the undesirable behavior, is smoking. The new behavior is not smoking. Being healthy, making healthy choices, that's the new behavior. Once the inner mind becomes aware that you want to make a change, it's actually very, very good at marching forward and trying to make that change, or it will make that change. Now, the reason why willpower is not effective many times is because willpower, as I mentioned previously, is a function of the conscious mind. The conscious mind is not the keeper of the files. It doesn't manage the hard drive, if you will. The subconscious or inner mind does that. And that's why willpower doesn't work very often. So in case anybody's wondering if there is anything a behavior that they would like to change, as smoking as an example, all this work can be done by a skilled hypnotherapist. Okay, so there's a lot of really good people out there doing the work and helping people to make big changes in their life by just changing behavior and understanding that we just have to update and make some changes to those files. All right. Now, let's get to the piece about mind control, because as I mentioned, a lot of people equate mind control to hypnosis, hypnosis to mind control. And a lot of that is because that's how the media presents it. Hypnosis is not mind control, and mind control is not hypnosis. Hypnosis is one tool in the mind control toolbox. This is very important to understand. Mind control is brainwashing. It is the creation of new identities, alter personalities, also known as multiple personality disorder. The objective of mind control programs is to reprogram and repattern the mind. And that's different than hypnosis. As I mentioned, hypnosis can be a tool and is a tool in a mind control program. But hypnosis by itself is not going to reprogram and repattern the mind. It's not going to create alter personalities. It's not going to create new identities. It will help somebody who was a smoker become a non-smoker. It will help somebody who is a drinker to become a non-drinker, and so on. But we're talking about two very different things here. So what mind control looks to do is it looks to wipe the mind. It's not looking to tweak a file here or tweak a file there to alter behavior. It's looking to wipe the mind clean. So what they use in mind control programs is pain, electric shock, sensory deprivation, isolation, threats, physical and emotional trauma, the use of drugs like LSD, mescaline, scopolamine, which inhibit memory formation. And then what they'll do is after they use all these other techniques, or even in conjunction, they will use hypnosis. But as I said, hypnosis is just one tool in the toolbox. We've got pain, electric shock, sensory deprivation, threats, physical and emotional trauma, the use of drugs, and so on. And many who are listening to this probably know that the U.S. mind control programs have been in full swing since the 1940s, which is around 80 years ago. And many will argue that it was before that. But I'm talking about formal mind control programs that were disseminated and used by the government and secretive government agencies. That's been in play for about 80 years. So we can look at programs like Project Bluebird, Artichoke, MK Ultra, of course, and so on. Okay, so hopefully that made sense that there is a difference between mind control and hypnosis. So that takes me to hypnosis in the media. So one of the things that the subconscious, the inner mind loves is imagery. Absolutely loves imagery. In fact, imagination is the language of the inner mind. So what television does, television creates an alpha state trance. So remember, I mentioned before, there were 4 basic trance states. We had beta, conscious or waking state, alpha below that, theta below that, and then sleep or delta is the 4th. What the television does, it takes you below your conscious or waking state and drops you into alpha. And the way they do that is if you're watching the cable news as an example, I'll pick on Fox News. And if you've ever noticed, Fox News has that little spiraling cube at the bottom left-hand side of the television set, right? Or they have a ticker going across the bottom, giving headlines or stock prices. Well, that little spinning cube and that ticker, that's not for stock prices. What that's for is that creates what is referred to as eye fatigue. So what happens is your mind subconsciously is focused on that cube spinning, or you're watching that ticker, and that's what drops you into an alpha trance state. It's like watching a flickering candle or a fire in the fireplace. Many of us are very familiar with that, especially watching a fireplace. People will say, watching a fireplace is very calming. Well, that's because it's dropping you down to an alpha state, and that's why you're becoming very relaxed and very calm. They like to use blues and reds. Red is associated with power, aggression, winning, warning, high alert, fight or flight. It impacts critical thinking. Blue is associated with cool, calm, safety, open spaces. For instance, think in terms of the sky and the ocean, waking up, generosity. That's why when you go to a lot of box stores, Walmart as an example, there's a lot of blue. Why is that? Because blue, the mind associates the color blue with generosity, spending money. Red and blue also have Masonic meaning. Think in terms of the movie The Matrix, the red pill versus the blue pill, right? Red and blue. We have the Masonic Red Lodge and we have the Masonic Blue Lodge. Blue is considered the supreme color of Masonry. Red is the color of fire, and the symbol of regeneration going back to ancient Egypt. Okay, so that's why we see the reds and the blues. One, because red and blue, the mind decodes red and blue a certain way, as I just mentioned, and also because they are representing themselves. They're representing Freemasonry with the colors of red and blue. As we're watching the television, we've dropped into that alpha state because we're watching that spinning logo, we're watching the ticker, and we're just focused on that television. What we will see, 9/11 is a perfect example, we will have the same video image played over and over and over again. It's looped with spoken words from the quote-unquote reporter, which is really the hypnotist at that point. And we then see screen text coordinating screen text, I should say, that's coordinated with words and the images. War, terror, shooting, pandemic, etc. So there is hypnotic word and imagery association. And repetition is critical to impose conditioning. That's why they have 24/7 news cycles in order to keep people in that induced state and to get their hypnotic suggestions into your mind. And that's why so many people today cannot seem to turn the corner, because they are constantly bombarded with essentially a hypnosis session every single day, and for most people, for many hours a day. So I don't know how I'm doing on time, Jesse. I can end there if it's
Yeah, so
it's helpful.
this is our time. So, Mr. Mike Williams, wow, you are a wealth of knowledge. Sounds, to me like you're a very brilliant man, and you've got a lot of information. So, please tell everybody how they can connect with you beyond the Truth Telethon here.
Well, the best way to reach me is just to go to my hub website. It's Sage, S-A-G-E of Quay, Q-U-A-Y. It's one word, sageofquay.com. You go there. It's a one-page website. All of my links are there. You can visit all of my platforms and all my other work.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that information. There's so many people commenting, and yeah, you are definitely helping humanity with your words.
Well, thank you, Jesse. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me onto the show.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.